He was part of one of the most memorable periods in Celtic's history. A striker who spoke his mind when needed and backed it up with goals. Love him or hate him, Chris Sutton can never be accused of holding back. Today at Currie Club, the Scottish Football Sessions, we discuss his broadcasting career, the highs, the lows, and all the confrontations in between.
Chris, can't wait for this. You've come on the Currie Club and you've dressed up for it as well.
Yeah, don't worry about my dress sense. I mean, you want to worry about the Currie Club. It's not even spelt correctly, is it?
The joke's lost on you.
I-E. That's Currie Club with a Y, isn't it? But how are they naming you instead of me? I mean, I've done a lot of these pods with you, haven't I?
You've done a few, in fairness.
Yeah. And I'm a big star. I've won the Premier League and won a Golden Boot.
Have you?
I mean, you haven't.
I mean,
what have you won?
I'm the most unlucky man in TV for working with you every week. That trophy. That belongs to me. You are a man who divides opinion. Is that fair to say?
I think so in certain places, yeah.
Like, Scotland?
Like
Glasgow?
Scotland, my house.
Yeah. No, you definitely do. And it's been noted by, I think, a lot of people. The public enjoy getting in touch with you on Twitter and social media. Chris Sutton, I was told, as a footballer, and I vaguely remember this as well, never spoke to the press, hated doing interviews.
That's not strictly true.
Well, what is the truth then?
Well, the truth of it is, when I was a player, I was a young boy at Norwich City. I loved seeing my name on the back of national newspapers, linked with every club. Then I moved to Blackburn for a British record transfer fee at the time. Got a bit of stick before I kicked a ball at Blackburn. So my sort of view on the media and the press wasn't quite the same. I loved the adulation. I was a bit of a sulker when I got criticism, did well at Blackburn, went to Chelsea, got absolutely panned and walloped in the national news.
Did someone do you over, though? Did someone write something that was false?
There's levels of criticism, and you don't mind constructive criticism. Some of it was over the top, and of course it doesn't just affect you, it affects your family. So, when
Are we talking the Chelsea stuff here?
Yes. So the pretty, not extreme stuff, but my performances weren't good. But I think there were, it was over the top, some of the criticism, and was, unfair. And it was, look, I didn't help myself because I didn't play well, and it was continuous. And of course, people think it's just you, but it's not. It's, your family. My wife would be out with my kids, in London shopping, and she took a bit of flack because I had my name and number on the back of shirts, which isn't nice for them. I don't think they wore my shirts after that, the kids, as well. So they didn't support me on that. But
did you make a decision, a conscious decision by the time maybe you got to Celtic, or what point in your career?
Yeah.
Because you didn't do lots of interviews.
No.
And you were quite difficult when you did do them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, at Celtic, for example, one of the press officers, I said, we'd go into a press conference and I'm just going to answer with just yes or no, which...
Did you do it?
Which I did, yeah, and I haven't changed much
You're a nightmare.
throughout my broadcasting career. And then I used to say on the bus, Alan Thompson, John Hartson, I'll tell you, if you ever see me working in the media, you can smash me around the head with the shovel. And here I am.
I remember we had an invitation was extended to you to come on one of our BT Sport games in the early years. And you were a different man back then, by the way. But at what point when that invitation came through, did you think, yeah, this is for me now?
Well, I'd had a dip into management, and I'd stopped that, and I'd played a bit of golf, which I'm really bad at. And it's about being stimulated. On a serious note, there are a lot of players who I think when they... When their football career finishes, will sort of say, well, that's the end for me as such, and they say it like this, but feel sorry for themselves. I actually look at it like this: I was lucky to have that career. I got into the game late, had a decent career, but then it's about trying to find the next thing and being stimulated. So. I tried management, that didn't, work out as such, and then so I sort of eased my way in, mainly through Scottish football.
You certainly did.
Into the media, and I found that I really enjoyed it. And
did you find it difficult to begin with? And I say you were a different man. Your delivery was different. You were quite slow and thoughtful in every answer. I would say
is that a compliment?
The humour hadn't really developed at that point. You were quite serious.
No.
Timu Pukki was playing for Celtic at the time, and you called him Pukki that whole season, which got us laughing on air.
Was that humour?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it was intentional, but
we all struggle with names, don't we? At times,
a little bit.
I think I still call him what do you call him, Pookie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pukey's wrong.
He
yeah.
did go Pukey.
That's not great. Yeah.
It wasn't. It was a bit.
But he
weird.
wasn't great at Celtic,
Well,
was he?
no, well, might have fit the bill back then, to be honest with you. You did take it really seriously, and you did go and watch yourself back after most of the shows. You did, admit it. And you would phone and talk to us. You would speak to me and a few other people to try and find out how you could improve.
Yes, but that's, I think most people are like that. It's like as a footballer, you want to, you always strive to be the best. I think the most important thing, and the way I view things, and I still do, if you say something on our shows or in the press, you have to, if you meet that person in the street, then you have to be prepared to say it to the face or back up what you say. So I've always worked off the back of that. And listen, I mean, as you well know, I mean, we've had a few scrapes over the years and a few people who have been, slightly peeved.
Well, we'll get to that,
upset.
but you've phoned me up after from some games and not been happy at all. I remember one moment in the early days at Tynecastle.
That's
where
most
you'd done,
games. Where
well, you'd
I've
done
found
half
you.
an hour with us and you were going to go and do the commentary. I think it was Hearts v Aberdeen. Do you remember this?
I do,
as you walked away from the platform, we were going to the break. Just as we went to the break, you were walking around behind the goal. And I think, there's some clubs that liked you more than others back then, but I think you were winning some people over in Scottish football, and you walked in front of the Aberdeen fans, the away end, and you thought that they were giving you the full applause, so you gave it that, and then you turned around and you realised it was Aberdeen running out of the pitch. The players coming out to do the warm-up. And we ran that on air when we came back from the break, and you really took the hump. You weren't happy in those days.
No, because I thought you got that totally wrong. I thought the Aberdeen fans were actually applauding me at that particular time. That's poor production.
But you would laugh now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd probably laugh now,
Yeah. The one thing you always do, if people like it, some don't obviously, is you are brutal at times, to the point, honest on anyone that you're commentating or talking about, even if it's people you know really well. And as a result of that, you've run into some, I wouldn't say trouble, but you've had some fiery debates, haven't you? Craig Gordon was one of the early ones, actually. You were quite critical of him for a while when he was at Celtic. And you ran into him after one of the games, didn't you?
No, I felt his form had dipped a bit at Celtic. Now, Craig Gordon was always a good goalkeeper, and I said it at the time. But there was one game in the League Cup where he came out and he should have been sent off as like I think I described it as a Hong Kong Phooey types at the kick, and he brought someone down. He should have been red carded, and he just lost a little bit of confidence at that time. So, I was critical of him because it's not easy playing as a goalkeeper for Celtic. It's a nightmare position. You dominate the ball for so much of the game, and then certainly in the league you have one or two things to do, and just maybe lost a little bit of concentration. We see he's doing really well now, but I was critical of him. And then we were doing a game up in Dundee. I can't remember whether it was United or Dundee.
United v Celtic, yeah.
And so I live in Norfolk, and I always fly back to Norwich or Stansted, because Stansted's the next closest airport to Norwich.
Thanks for the geography.
And it's important for people like you. And there's actually nobody in the airport lounge, and I'm sitting
It's the smallest airport in the world.
Yeah, tiny Dundee airport, lovely little airport. And then all of a sudden, Craig Gordon, lo and behold, walks in, and and I think that he'd actually spoken about the criticism which I'd given him before publicly.
He wasn't happy with you.
No, so we were sort of at war, and then we'd just look at each other.
And he sat next to you on the flight.
Yeah, and then and it was.
Did you address it with him?
Yeah, I said, "Hi, Craig." He's like, "Hi," and we stood there. It was quite good actually, because we had to speak, and I gave sort of my view to him, and he was fine, and I've seen him since, and I think things like that are actually quite important to you clear the air. I give my point of view. He was unhappy about some of the criticism, but that's the whole point about prepping, backing your opinion, and making sure you're right.
Yeah. And Craig, by the way, what a goalkeeper. What a career, still going so strong.
Still going.
I think the most difficult night I remember for you, sort of broadcasting terms, or actually being with you on air, I think it was Sparta Prague, the group stages of the Europa League, Celtic Park, you remember this, Celtic this season, they're going for 10 in a row. Neil Lennon is the manager. It was COVID times, there's no fans about, but we were only allowed one pundit if you remember as well. So it was only me and you in that platform.
Yeah.
So we had to wait at the end of the game. Celtic lost, was it 4-1?
Yeah.
You know, you took me on quite a few times that night. We had a bit of a ding-dong on air. You were critical of a few different players, but you were very critical of Neil Lennon at the time. Neil, as far as I know you quite well, was one of your best mates. You effectively said that he probably should lose his job.
Was it difficult? Well, it wasn't difficult because you can only say what's in front of you, and the story of that particular time under Neil at Celtic. So, you know, that part of it wasn't difficult, but there's always that sort of nagging feeling in the stomach where, I mean, you know, Neil's, was a great mate of mine. You know, we played together for 4 years at Celtic. I used to sit next to him in the dressing room.
Your families know each other?
Yeah, my wife, chats to Neil's wife, and I mean, for example, when my son James was born at 28 weeks, you know, Neil was there the next morning. You know, came in, visited, my wife, little James, who wasn't well, and showed great support in that particular time. We, you know, used to go out together as teammates, as a lot of us did. You know, I mean, that particular team, we were like a band of brothers.
But despite all that, you still felt that when it came to broadcasting, you had to put all of that to one side. You had to be honest, and that cannot have been easy.
No, it wasn't. You know, on the other side, and you know, I've spoken to Neil about this. You know, Neil is a broadcaster as well, and a really, you know, very, very good broadcaster. And I think he understands the game in that respect, where, you know, the various people who he works for, you know, he will be critical of managers and he will be critical of players.
But he wasn't happy with you.
Because that is the game. No, and he wasn't happy with me.
Did he make that very clear?
Yes. I mean... you know, I mean, we walked down after the game. I mean, you couldn't sort of make this up, really.
An empty Celtic Park, no fans in it.
Totally
we had to leave.
And we had to leave through a certain exit because of COVID and sort of the protocols. And as we were going down, Neil and the press officer Ian Jameson had turned the corner to walk up, and it was like,
I'll
God,
never forget it.
Just that second. And,
Never forget it.
And I think I said something like, "All right, Neil." And Neil didn't.
There was no
say
reply.
anything. No. And
but I was trying to keep a straight face behind you because I mean it was quite a funny moment.
Yeah. And well, it
wasn't funny.
Listen,
the context wasn't funny, but him ignoring you like that it tickled me. But then it got serious because I remember you saying afterwards, "This is not good. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to keep being honest." But you know, that's one of my mates in there, and
but
he's no longer talking to me.
But from Neil's point of view, I totally get that because of the pressure, because he's Celtic manager, because of the expectation. Those COVID times were an absolute nightmare to manage him because of the way, you know, the crowd can really lift the team and where the team seemed to find something more. And that was really difficult for him. But having said that, the performances at that particular time weren't there. You know, now time has sort of healed a little bit and everybody realises what a brilliant servant he was. If he ever sort of calmed down, then he would, you know, he may look back in many years to come and think, well, actually, I was right. But
I doubt it. I doubt it.
But knowing Neil, I don't want to stop. Right. You know, you keep.
But you're not going to try management. Would you ever?
Not unless you've heard something, Daryl, or you know you've.
I'd love to get rid of you. I'd put you in for a few jobs. Do you remember someone else? Lee Griffiths, furious. I thought I was going to get it, and I heard him shout, "Where is he?" sort of thing. And I sort of said, "Who?" "You know who." And as I looked round, you were just walking off the platform, and he wanted to come and speak to you. In fact, he wanted you to come down and speak to him.
That would have been quite an interesting petty watch of pettiness. You come down here. No, you come up here. No, you come. No, you can't. That was how it started, and then eventually Lee
he jumped over.
And he was really angry. I'd been critical of his physical condition, and you know, Celtic at that particular time, because you know, don't forget, Lee Griffiths was such an important player for a long time at Celtic. He was a brilliant natural goal scorer. I thought he'd let himself go. I don't think I was the only one thinking it. I said it. he took offence.
The front row seat was trying to peer over your shoulder, those big shoulders.
But the long and the short of it is, I stand by what I said, and I told him that. I get it. I played, and you don't take criticism well. I mean, Lee's a passionate guy. He wanted to come and vent his frustration, but I felt at that particular time, and I said to him, he's better off venting his frustration in ways of getting himself fit enough and becoming an asset.
Sort of what you said.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah.
Because right now you're not allowed to go to Ibrox. You have been banned, so to speak. Is that right?
Why are you smiling when you're saying that?
It is quite funny.
Is it?
Well, we've had conversations about it. But you've been banned. But you sort of say to me, you're not sure why.
Well, I'm not sure.
What is
why.
the reason? And have you officially been banned? And if so,
I don't know.
Well, why are you not allowed in?
I heard from third party that I wasn't allowed in, and that was the case. And there's people inside Ibrox who are saying I'm still not allowed in, as far as I know. Deep down, how do I feel about it? I think it's not a dangerous game they're playing, but I mean censorship, where you can only, if you come in and say things which we don't like, then we will ban you. I don't know, actually, what particular things I've said which Rangers don't like.
See, I don't think it's so much on BT Sport, funnily enough. I know you've had some jokes about it, but that's Scottish Football Extra.
But then why don't
we mess around? But is it more the newspaper stuff, some of the columns? Is it...
Well, I don't know, but then surely the easiest thing to clear the air would be, well, or at least I would know, is for somebody to give me a call and say, well, hang on a minute, we're unhappy about, some of the, you've said this and that.
You would never reach out to them? Would you try?
That's called courtesy.
Would you try and speak to them?
It's not for me.
Would you like to resolve it?
Would I like to resolve? I don't think it's for me to resolve.
You don't think there's anything you've written or said
it's
that might
totally
have
unacceptable.
Really upset them. I mean, look, one thing.
Well, tell me then.
Well, no. One thing that comes to mind, because we've brought it up, and we, myself and Ali McCoist have a bit of a giggle on Scottish Football Extra with you about it now, is that a headline appeared one morning and it didn't go down well at all. It was about James Tavernier, the Rangers captain at the time. And I think the headline, and I don't know if this helped or not, maybe it made it worse for you, you'd made a comment in the article, serial loser, I think, which was the back page.
Right, but what's the only way to answer criticism is to roll your sleeves up. So, would I call James Tavernier a serial loser now? I think I called him a serial loser because he hadn't won anything at that particular time.
Was it necessary, though, I guess?
I'm
only trying to give an example where somebody might have a beef with you.
I was factual at that particular time. I've got great admiration for James Tavernier and the way that he's actually played the last number of seasons. The way he's captained Rangers and they demolished Celtic by 25 points. He was brilliant last season. Took Rangers to the Europa final.
You did praise.
So I can't call him a serial loser. Now he's answered in the best. I mean,
but knowing how you felt as a player,
are we really going to get offended by by little snippets like that?
But you were as a player.
So somebody wouldn't let you into a stadium.
But you were offended as a player, you've already said it. I'm not relating this to your stadium ban. I'm just wondering, knowing how it felt, I know you have to dish it out sometimes, but you surely can understand why that upset a player or a person.
Yeah, but there's, I didn't like it myself. I had to take it. I mean, I've not heard James Tavernier say anything about this. He's done exactly what he should do, and total admiration for him for the way he's conducted himself and the way he's led the Rangers team and dragged the Rangers team up to a level now where they are a real force back in Glasgow now.
You were highly, highly critical of Celtic managers in the past. This wasn't just about Rangers. You were quite brutal about Ronnie Dyla at times. You had to sit and interview him one day, I remember. You didn't hold back. He was fine. He's fine. He spoke to you, everything else. You didn't hold back with some of those managers. And actually, I even remember in those days, some of the Celtic fans were starting to get a bit
United,
peeved
Tannadice. The Celtic away fans were, a lot of them were giving me.
Did you feel you'd lost some of them at the time?
But
you were being honest.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's being true to yourself. This was the season where I think it was Ronnie's second season where Celtic were just slipping in Europe. It had been a massive disappointment. I mean, I went quite early on sort of Ronnie Dyla and that European campaign and just said, basically, it wasn't good enough. Celtic were underperforming. The manager's the one who carries the can. If you remember, you think of that time at Celtic, they were closing the top tier. And this was only a few years ago. Celtic were closing the top tier for European games.
Yeah.
That is unheard of.
It's unthinkable now.
As such, when you look at it now, and Celtic could have however many more season tickets they could sell now. 60,000 capacity. That was supporters giving the club a message.
Yeah.
And
but yet some of those supporters weren't happy, though. You were criticising your team.
But I totally get that as well, because there's always an element of support to every club who love their club so much that whatever negativity there is towards their particular club, then they're going to take umbrage. I get that, but you have to get on with it.
Yeah, you do wind some people up. Social media, I think you enjoy the wind-up sometimes, and I wonder. Because I know you quite well, I think. I wonder why at times you bother, because some of the stuff that comes back is horrible.
In all honesty, I understand the good and the bad of social media. I think.
How bad's the bad for you?
Well, the bad is bad, but honestly, I don't.
Give me an example.
I've got thick skin. I don't care. I mean, I showed you a message earlier, sort of mocking my sort of dead dad, which isn't great. I mean, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, about a family dog which died. The one thing which I do is, I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and of course, actually, I don't know the social media rules, but a lot of kids do have access to Twitter and Facebook and what have you. I don't let her look at my Twitter timeline. I'm not going for a sympathy vote, but it's literally daily. But I'll say this: there are a lot of good people, out there on it, where you can have back and forth and opinions about all football clubs, not just Celtic and Rangers.
And are you going to do this now, do you think, for a long, long time? If you got that point in your mind, you think, I'm going to stop, because you had a go at management, you've mentioned that. Would you ever go back into that?
I think those days have gone. It would have been over a decade ago now.
Yeah.
Listen. I like what I do. I think that there is, naturally with everything, there is a shelf life, but I don't want to stop.
Right.
You keep.
But you're not going to try management. Would you ever?
Not unless you've heard something, Daryl, or you've.
I'd love to get rid of you. I'd put you in for a few jobs, but because people still look at Lincoln and laugh, try and have a bit of a laugh at your expense because it didn't go to plan. You've told me what was going on in the background. I understand how difficult it was at the time. Now you take credit for the rise of Lincoln since you left.
But I mean, yes, but I mean, a lot of that is uneducated fun by Robbie Savage.
So that's it. That's it. The management.
That's not going to.
The line has been drawn.
I love my football, but I think when you're in fairness, you're out of the game for a long time in terms of management and coaching. It's very hard to go back into when you think of. The likes of Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard have come out of the game, and they're in big jobs. Then Mark Noble, for example, has retired from West Ham. Great servant that he was. There's always somebody coming out of the game, bright, smart people who were looking for roles in management and coaching. So that ship has probably sailed.
Okay, I think this ship has probably sailed. We've been chatting for a while. Thank you very much. Good man. Cheers.
Cheers.
BT Sport Pods.